Hello everybody, Jason up, New Days Revolution down here in the cave for the kickoff of the LJN Revisited series. That's right. I put out a little post today. 25 of you responded and said that you would gladly welcome another bit of time spent on my favorite toy line of all time and the toy line that actually kicked off this channel, the WWF LJN Wrestling Superstars. My entire childhood right behind me, and that is not an understatement. There is barely any other toy that I cared about at all other than these figures over there. So what I thought I would do is take a look at every single figure. A little later on, we're going to do a video, an up-close look at this figure. We'll look at the head, we'll look at the body type, we'll look at the arms, we'll look at everything. Any accessories that come with them, we'll take very, very, very close looks at, so you can see the figure up close and personal. And then story time. So figure number one, and again, you will see a close-up video after this portion. Figure number one is figure number one. Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was the face of our childhoods. Whether you were one of the cool kids who rooted for the bad guys even when you were 8, or if you were just like the rest of us and you cheered who you were supposed to cheer and booed who you were supposed to boo, you had something to do with Hulk Hogan. And I certainly know I did. This figure to me is perfect. And this figure to me is the greatest action figure of all time, right? It is, I'm in my mind, I'm holding in my hands the greatest toy ever. And I know many will disagree, but you base that on your own childhood experience, your own experience with toys. And this is the greatest toy that there ever was. Hulk Hogan. And when I did the my favorite LJN tournament, remember a couple of years ago I pulled all the LJNs and we just did a tournament, a bracket, almost like a March Madness deal, and I talked through every figure and chose one over the other. And when it came down to it, it was Hogan. I think it was Hogan and Valentine. I think, maybe, I don't remember, but Hogan won, which would say that Hulk Hogan is my favorite LJN figure. Hulk Hogan is the first, one of two LJNs that I got first, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. We'll talk about Andre the Giant in the next video. Hulk Hogan is the first LJN figure that I got. And I, to talk about play with Hogan, look, I mean, again, in the early days of LJN playing, I was a kid. I was 8, 9, 10 years old. And so Hogan was the champion. That's it. He was the champion in real life. He was the champion in the figures, because I couldn't justify Hogan not being a world champion, right? If you were a kid, a WWF fan in the early 80s, you couldn't imagine anybody but Hulk Hogan being your champion. And so when I was playing with the figures, I couldn't imagine anybody else being my champion. So he was my champion. Now, as I got a little bit older, I got a little bit more creative, and I, would switch the title a bit. I would give it to Randy Savage, Bruno Sammartino held it, and tons of other guys would Terry Funk, and lots of other guys would actually wouldn't really defeat Hogan, but once Hogan lost it, I think to Bruno. I think Bruno was the first time Hogan lost the title. I can't remember, but other guys held the title. But in the beginning, it was Hogan. Hogan's the champ. He's the champ on TV. He's the champ in your figure federation. I never turned Hulk Hogan bad when I was playing. Obviously, this was long before the NWO, and it was long after Hogan was a bad guy in real life. I had no idea As an 8-year-old boy, Hulk Hogan came out of the ground. He came out of another planet. I had no idea that Hogan existed before Hogan existed, right? I didn't know that he was in the WWF as a bad guy and fought Andre the Giant. I had no idea about that. I had no idea that he was almost the AWA World Champion. I had no idea that he was, on WWF TV, managed by Freddie Blassie in 1979. No clue. No clue. So Hogan appearing for the first time was just, this superhero, this larger-than-life superhero. So I never turned him bad because I couldn't imagine Hulk Hogan being a bad guy, right? So how did I get him? Look, as you look at the video after this, you'll see the close-up look. You'll see you'll see the stamp date on the back of Hogan is 1984, and I have always had the memory or had the feeling that I saw LJNs at some point in 1984. Remember, Hogan wins the title in January of 84. We go the entire year, including Christmas of 84, with no LJNs, right? I know that there's facts and proof and blah, blah, blahs. I know, but the trunks are stamped 1984. Does that mean that they were on toy shelves in 1984? I can't remember. But they were made, or else they wouldn't be stamped 1984. They were somewhere. They were produced. They were made. Another reason why I think that these were made way early is the molding of the belt. This belt is molded after what's called the Big Green title. And I'll show you a picture. That's the belt that Bob Backlund held in late 83, right before he dropped it to the Iron Sheik. It's the belt that Iron Sheik wore for a couple of weeks before dropping it to Hogan. And it's the belt that Hogan wore until around April or May of 84. Or a little bit later, right? And this is that belt. Just imagine it with a green strap. That's the design of the belt. That little guy, holding up a belt ahead of it, over his head, the globe behind it, that was the Big Green title. Anyway, so I have to think that these were produced, that these were made by mid-84 at some point. Maybe summer of 84, they existed. Were they really not out until early 85? I don't know. I don't know. I know that for Christmas 85, I got a bunch. But month unknown, 1985, I assume I got Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. Now, I've told the story before. I haven't told it in a long time. I don't know how I knew of these guys. I assume that it was the LJN commercial. I assume. Oh, boy. You know what'll really be the tell is when I start watching, some of my 1985 footage. I mean, I'm watching my 85 footage now, but I'm only up to March of 85. And there's no mention of LJNs. There's no shots in the crowd. There's no nothing. Soon there will be commercials, right? So I guess that kind of argues the truth that they didn't come out till 85 because I'm watching WWF programming. It's March 85. We've got no mention of figures. There was no mention of them on TV at Christmas time. There were no commercials of them. There was no nothing. Anyway, it's sometime 1985. I assumed that I had seen the commercials. I assumed that I had seen them in a magazine. I assumed that I'd seen them somewhere. But I knew that there were 5, and I knew that I wanted them. My memory tells me that they were $7.99. And today, as a dad, $7.99 for my kid to have, the biggest thing that he's interested in his whole life, I'm going to go buy them all. I'm going to get all 5 for him. I'm going to bring them home. I'm going to be first in line when they're on the release date or whatever. But I guess back then maybe it was different. I assume money was different. I know it was. And $7.99 might have been the equivalent of $20 back then. I don't know. But I know that I didn't get them that fast. And I remember one night, my mom was out. This is pre-divorce, so I'm 8. No, I'm 9. I'm 9 in 85. I'm 9 in 85. Then it has to be pre-divorce. Because they got divorced. I guess they got divorced when I was 9. I've always been telling people they got divorced when I was 8. But I guess my parents got divorced when I was 9. All right, so I'm 9 years old. It's 85. My mom goes shopping. And she comes home. It's nighttime. I'm sitting in my room, I guess. That's that basement bedroom with the TV that I've told stories about. She comes home, and my memory wants to tell me that it's a store called Gold Circle. That it is Gold Circle was pretty much kind of an East Coast, like Upper East Coast store, like a Walmart, a Target. She went to Gold Circle and she came home with Hogan and Andre. It wasn't my birthday. It wasn't Christmas. It was just Hogan and Andre. It was just a gift. Now, the cynical child in me, the cynical child and the very giving father says, were the other 3 there? Was Stud, Sheik, and Snuka there as well? And you got me just 2? Were you like 2's enough? They're $8 each. We're not made of money, kid. That's going to be, 8 times 5. That's going to be $40. You crazy kid. We're not spending $40 on you. That's a car payment. I don't know. But she came home with Hogan and Andre, and it was on. It was on. The packaging. The size of the packaging, the beautiful 5-card back, the 5-figure card back. But even more important than all of that, and almost equally as important as the figure, was the poster inside. Because I had such a love for stuff that I could hang on my wall, as all kids do. There's no wall space in either one of my kids' bedrooms. There's no wall space left. They have filled it with stuff. They win little baseball cards, like wrestling cards or superhero cards at like Dave & Buster's. They get them home, they hang them on their wall. So posters. Man, I was getting a poster. And it was a cartoony poster, right? It wasn't just I had the live action pinups. I had the real posters. These were a cartoony poster, this awesome drawing. The best. And you'd think because I had Hogan and Andre, I would wrestle Hogan versus Andre. I would have, good guy Hogan versus good guy Andre. No, I couldn't do that. So my creative brain said that Hogan was Barry Windham and Andre was Mike Rotundo. And they would face Greg Valentine, who was Hogan, and Brutus Beefcake, who was Rotundo. Who was Andre. Beefcake, so if Barry Windham, Hulk Hogan, was in the ring, then Brutus Beefcake, Andre the Giant, was in the ring. And then I would tag out and Rotundo would come in, Andre the Giant, and he would face Valentine, who was Hulk Hogan. And now that I'm sitting here, Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake didn't team up until like summer of 85. So what are we talking about here? When did I get these figures? It's crazy. I wouldn't have known that Valentine and Beefcake. Anyway, I guess all of that does and doesn't matter. It really does matter. And I wish that there was a way that I could go back and just figure out when these first 2 figures came. But Hulk Hogan later on in play, like I said, he had an awesome feud with Bruno Sammartino. I had my first 1-hour match with Hogan versus Bruno Sammartino, and I remember it was a legit hour. I wanted to have an hour-long match. I had an hour-long match. I timed it, and then I called my best pal at the time and said, I just had an hour-long match. Hogan versus Savage, Hogan versus Stud, Hogan versus Iron Sheik I would do a lot. That was just a fun match to have. I don't remember who I teamed Hogan with that much. I don't think I really ever focused on him as a tag team. He might have been like a special tag team partner of somebody at some point. Then when the steel cage came in '86, you know, you have Hogan versus Bundy, and you just have these. I had Hogan versus Bruno in a cage a lot. Just fun stuff. I really loved, when we get to Bruno Sammartino, I really loved using Bruno. I started using Bruno like '86, '87, but we'll get to that. The belt. The belt is my favorite accessory for an action figure of all time. Of course, it has to be. This is my favorite action figure of all time. And just the best memories. I remember in the childhood bedroom, I had a ledge that was built into the wall. So half of the wall was like plaster and was painted white. And then below that was paneling. And to separate the two sections was a ledge, right? And I would just set the figure on the ledge with the poster underneath it, on the paneling. Sorry. So the figure sits here on the ledge, the poster's beneath it on the paneling, and then I would cut out the bio card and just kind of lean it up against the figure. And I only had two. I had Hogan and Andre, because I didn't get any more until Christmas of '85. So I guess I probably got this around summer of '85. I didn't get the rest until Christmas of '85. So I had two lonely figures sitting in my room for probably 7 months until I got the rest of Series 1A and 1B. You know, Nikolai, JYD, Roddy Piper. We'll get into that. Now imagine that. Imagine having two figures, two good guys who aren't going to fight each other, no ring, for 7 months. And the anticipation still builds to the next bunch of figures. If I got my kids two toys today, they would not care about those two toys 7 months from now when the rest of the figures came out, unless it was Fortnite, right? Could you imagine staying interested and waiting to get your hands on more figures so that you could expand your play? Incredible. Hulk Hogan, figure 1 of Series 1. Thank you very much. The first 5 to me will always be Series 1. We'll call it 1A for argument's sake. 1B is at Christmas time. We'll get to them. Hulk Hogan, there is the first of your LJNs revisited. Let's take a look at a close-up now of Hulkamania, brother. All right, guys, let's take a close look at the Hulkster, or the Hulker, as Dick Graham used to say. Couldn't think of his name for a minute. Close up of the Hulk. There it is. The most classic LJN, the most recognized LJN. We all had it. Even if you weren't a wrestling fan, your aunt got you a Hulk Hogan figure, I guarantee it. Blue eyes, baby blue eyes on the Hulk. The famous handlebar mustache, the famous receding hairline. That white headband needs to be touched up, and since I am slightly better with the paintbrush, I might actually touch that up a little bit. I don't think it'll take away from the figure at all. I'm not going to mess with the hair, but I can just get some white and paint that headband. My favorite pose, it is the pose. I mean, there are shirts that I want to make with the Hulk Hogan silhouette pose on it. I haven't been able to get anybody to design it for me. I want a black shirt with I guess I'd want a white shirt with a blacked out Hulk Hogan silhouette on it of this figure, of this pose. I would love that. Or a black shirt with just a white outline of the Hogan pose. But let's not digress. Let's look at the figure. 2 punching fists. Two punching fists, best wrestling pose for LJNs. There it is, the most classic accessory in the history of toys. The LJN championship belt. Yellow trunks. He's got that sort of bent knee pose that I love. Perfect LJN figure. Absolutely perfect. Knee pads, red of course, could use some touch-ups. Probably not going to mess with those either, unless I can get an exact red. Now you might have noticed some of these interesting spots here. That mold spot and that mold spot. Now I'm calling it a mold spot because I don't know what else it is, but it is a common LJN discoloration kind of deal. There's the front of the Hulk, that beautiful side pose, and the back of the Hulk that of course we've all seen. I always thought that this was interesting, a little paint damage there from the old factory on Hogan. Somebody was sleeping that day. Somebody was not doing a good job. It's not on the other side. Somebody did a poor job there. Inspector number, 468. What do we got on the back of the trunks? We've got Titan Sports 1984, ladies and gentlemen. LJN, LTD, and then the number 8. No clue. But 1984, little controversy. Boots, the back of Hogan. This is the way the belt goes on for those who don't know. It's just got kind of that little, I don't know, not a hook and eye, but, just loops through. And there he is. There is the Hulk. If you watch the My Favorite LJN tournament that I did a couple years ago, Hogan won. He's the original. He's the first. And he is one of the first two that I had. And I'm filming this before I filmed the story, so I probably already told that story. But here's your final close-up look at the Hulk Hogan face and that belt. That belt is absolutely modeled after the Iron Sheik, Bob Backlund, and Hulk Hogan's Big Green world title, which went out of production, was not being used by mid-84. So there's another thing to talk about. Why would they have used this belt? Why? Because these figures were ready. They were in package. They were in a big giant bin in LJN factory by mid-84. Or else this belt would not have been used. The Hogan 85 belt would have been used. But we'll talk about that. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most famous action figures of all time. I, of course, would make the case that it is the most famous action figure of all time. Many would disagree. Hulk Hogan. Could we have gotten, Hulkamania across the headband? Sure, we could have. They printed letters on LJN figures in the future, going forward. They printed stars on Big John Studd's trunks. Could we have done a Hulkamania or a Hulkster across the headband? Possibly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there he is. The incredible Hulk Hogan, LJN number 1. All right, guys, the Hulkster is put back nicely on his shelf there with the doll stands. I think this LJN Revisited thing is going to, that's Fortnite upstairs. The LJN Revisited is probably going to get me to get more of these doll stands. I love these, and I've only got up until Bruno. That's it. So I've got all these in doll stands. I didn't put guys like Bundy in a doll stand or Albano in a doll stand. They don't need it, and they really don't fit. Yeah, there they are up there with the doll stands. I love them. And I think doing the LJN Revisited will prompt me to get some more doll stands. So there you go. We're going to do one at a time. We're just going to do one at a time. It's story time. It's close-ups. Every single figure, including the XOX Customs. It's going to be a long road. Let's do it. We love the LJNs. Good night now.